Welcome everybody to Inside Hollywood on the Hudson. I'm your host, Michelle Sorvino, and I'm here with the mayor of Ridgefield, New Jersey. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming out, Anthony Suarez. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Thank you for having me on your show.
Thanks for coming out to North Bergen. I know that your book comes out today. You wrote a book. You have a big story to tell, a lot of details and information that are written in the book, but certainly I think all of our guests are excited to have you talk about the book and the experience that you went through and how that affected your life and your family. And thank you for coming here.
Yep, thanks.
Okay, so let's get started, right? I think everybody is most curious about the book and the details of what happened back in 2009 when you were arrested and charged, right, with extortion?
Yep.
Okay, so let's hear it.
Well, so what the book tells is, in my opinion, from a variety of aspects about some life issues, I would think, that first of all, you really, when you know that you believe in something, that you stick to it and you don't, give up or pack things in, which is when this all happened. I had people trying to get me to resign from office and to, from my own party and from the other party, Corzine being the one who was one of the most adamant. And I didn't, because I, obviously didn't do anything wrong, and I, believe that in the end things would work out. The other thing that I think you really pick up from it is that, and I do talk about specific people that were there. Really, your friends are the ones who are with you to the end. They always believe in you, and they will never turn their back on you. Because
did you find out who your real friends were at that
absolutely
time?
Did. Yep. A lot of people who I thought were my friends and I thought were, people that would always support me, that just, forgot my phone number, just stopped calling, or didn't want to affiliate or talk with me. And then you also see like the good in people. There was a lot of people in my own town that I didn't realize they knew who I was or much about me, but when this all happened, they would write me letters, basically telling me that they supported me, and they would continue to, pray and hope that things worked out, which they did. And then I think the overriding theme, which is actually pertinent in today's world, right, is that really what really can happen when the wrong people get into power, and how they can utilize not just public office to advance their own goals, but also if they have the ability to utilize the police powers of their office. Like this book talks a lot about Chris Christie when he was the U.S. Attorney. Yeah. And he was able to utilize that office to advance his own political goals, and in doing so, really, destroyed a lot of people's lives. And thankfully for me, I, in the end, it worked out for me, and I was still able to obviously stay with my family, and instead of what the result would have been if things went the wrong way.
Of course.
And then you also, and then Mike Critchley, who was my attorney, and John Vasquez, who's actually a federal judge now, they were my attorneys. And then really, I think that things happened for a reason, and I came to meet them because of this. And people say a lot of things about lawyers and criminal lawyers, but those two people were like two of the not just smartest lawyers I ever met, but they were just really good people. And you get to see the way that they do things, which was always, ethically and the right way to do things, and they always advised that way. So that was the other thing that I think was important for me.
Well, thank God that you came to those people, and thank God that the people actually supported you. So you were the mayor in 1998, right?
Well, I got on the council, actually, my first year was 98.
Okay.
And I became the mayor 5 years later, 2004.
Okay, 2004. 2009, you're indicted. Tell everybody the story, because maybe I think a lot of people didn't actually understand what happened.
Right, so what happens is, in 2009, the beginning of the year, February, March, I get a phone call from someone that I know who was a member of a charitable organization, Ridgefield Unico, that I had known for years, because we had both done work for the charity, and that's how I knew this person. And he said that he wanted to introduce me to someone that was a developer that wanted to do development in Ridgefield, and we'd been trying to clean up this chemical site, Pfister Chemical Company. It's on Route 46 since I first got into office. And we never thought we'd be able to do it. And he said, this guy wants to come in and buy it, and he wants to clean it up, and he wants to put in a nice rateable for the town, park, all kinds of things that were really...
Sounds amazing and too good to be true, right?
And it was.
And it was.
So we set up a meeting, and I said, fine, obviously it's not like some of the bigger cities where, maybe someone would meet an administrator or some other personnel in town hall. It's just essentially,
Sure.
Ridgefield's 11,000 people. You call me, you get me, and
Right.
I basically will try to do what I can to try to, do things like this to, grow our economy,
Grow the
do whatever.
town beautifully, right, of course.
So I go and we meet, and the first meeting ends where it was pretty innocuous. I generally talked about the site and things of that nature, and that was it. I thought he would eventually talk to someone in town hall that I referred him to, our administrator or someone else at the zoning or planning board. So I then get a call a little ways after that to have a second meeting. So we have the second meeting, and it's disturbing the way things go because he's saying things that I really didn't think were proper.
Right.
And he was just basically trying to goad me into accepting or saying things, and I wouldn't do that.
Right.
So after that meeting, I end up consulting with an attorney who's he's a former federal prosecutor, a guy named Henry Klingeman,
Okay.
who was a very good attorney, and we were talking about, he tried to give me money and I wouldn't take it. So I end up getting from, it's complicated to go into too much detail, but I end up talking to another attorney and telling him everything that happens at this meeting.
Right.
So he tells me have a third meeting if that occurs, and basically just lay it all online. Tell this guy everything, all the facts, the way you do business is on the on the
Right.
level.
On the
by
up and up,
Yeah.
and not interested, thank you very much.
Right. So we have that third meeting, and it's funny because I had to watch all these videotapes that they were taping me. And the third meeting is essentially almost like a comedy show where he would say something like, we could, put me at the top of the pile when I make my application. And my response would be, there's no piles. I don't know what you're talking about. We have no, there's not a bunch of applications coming in for this. Then he would say something else, and I would tell him, look, we do things by the book. And he would make, he was a serial fraudster. If you know his background, that he was, essentially bilking, religious institutions, families, millions and millions of dollars. The government took him in and converted him to become a cooperating witness. So I had never dealt with someone like this before. I usually don't deal with serial fraudsters.
Certainly.
And he was trying to work down his sentence by convicting as many people as he could. So what he did was he was trying to get me to bite and to basically take money and make a promise, which I wouldn't do for something that was illegal. So I leave the meeting and I'm thinking that, I'm never talking to this guy again. And
Good
next
for
thing I
you.
know, I end up getting a phone call while I'm on vacation in Long Beach Island in July that there's a warrant for my arrest. Where am I? I thought it was a joke. They said it was the FBI that they're looking for me. And I figured, well, how do you not know where I am? And essentially I found out they had staked out my house. They were there and apparently realized, when they arrested everyone that morning, I wasn't home. So they essentially were trying to get me on the cell phone. So I came up that day. They said, there's a warrant for your arrest. You need to turn yourself in, which I came up and I did what I was supposed to do. I'm not going to, do anything wrong.
Certainly.
Yeah. And, by the end of the year, that was in July, they did, and after getting all this information, my attorneys provided them with emails that I was sending out that, they didn't have, which said, I'm not taking any money from this guy, to my attorney at the time.
Yeah.
Copy of the canceled check that we never cashed. They didn't care. It just, was basically something that I think they went too far on because it was in the press every day, and I don't think they wanted to go back on it, and we ended up having to go to a trial.
Wow. We are going to take a short break. Anthony Suarez will be back in a few minutes.
Hudson TMA reminds you that a helmet can only protect your head if you wear it. Take a tip from Elizabeth and Xander.
So just think of your helmet as part of your gear. You don't see a soccer player without shin guards.
You don't see a basketball player without shoes.
You don't ride your bike without your helmet. It's part of the gear.
Let's take a look at proper helmet fit. The size of a helmet is very important. It should fit comfortably without rocking from side to side. The helmet should fit level on your head and low on the forehead, no more than 1 or 2 finger widths above the eyebrow. Adjust the lengths of the straps so that the buckle is centered under the chin. Side straps should be adjusted so that they form a V shape under and slightly in front of the ears. Lock the slider if possible. Buckle the chin strap and tighten it until snug. No more than 1 or 2 fingers should fit under the strap. Lastly, make sure the helmet is secure and doesn't rock back and forth. If a big yawn doesn't pull the helmet down on your head, tighten the chin strap.
Back from our break with Mayor Anthony Suarez. Thank you so much for being here and telling us the story, politically indicated the real story. You wrote the book. I think we left off where, you know, the FBI put out a warrant for your arrest, and now you're coming up from the Jersey Shore saying, what the hell is going on? I mean, I can't even imagine what you were feeling on that day, driving up. Were you with your family? And, you know, I'm sure it was terrifying for them.
Yeah, we were on our family vacation, and my stepdad drove me. We were on the Parkway, and the phone kept ringing. All my friends and other people that I knew kept calling me. And then, you know, we really didn't know the extent of what was going on, because when I asked the agent on the phone what it was about, because I absolutely had no idea.
Yeah.
She just told me to put on the television set, which I did, and I recognized obviously the person that was having lunch with me a few times. And, you know, when we got to Newark, it was just basically, you know, all of the politicians that were arrested and the rabbis. It was like a joint arrest operation that involved the Orthodox community.
But didn't you feel a little set up? I mean, the FBI takes a criminal, essentially, and takes him and plants him for these meetings. Don't you feel that an agency that was supposed to be protecting the people, setting them up, I guess, baiting them?
Yeah, I mean, you know, when you think about, you know, the FBI and law enforcement, you would think that they go after crimes that are being committed. Here, they sent the fraudster out, a serial fraudster, a man who stole millions.
This person is a professional person who can go out and convince anybody that $1 is $3. You know?
Right. He did it for his own family.
Exactly.
He ruined religious institutions, and they gave him money to be able to pay for all of his expenses while he was doing this. He was getting thousands of dollars a month. He had a Lexus. They did everything to set him, you know, up so that he could go out and create crimes. So I thought this was unprecedented, you know, that, you know, there would be no crime being committed. All of a sudden, he's going out there to try to make a crime up. So it was very disheartening in that regard. So, you know, eventually what happens is it becomes a whole political thing in my town, and my opponents on the Ridgefield Council, they basically try to do a recall election of me during this time period. So not only
do you get indicted for something that you didn't do, then your council people decide to flip it on you and try to get you removed as mayor.
Right. They try to get me to resign. It was the Republicans at the time who were well written in the book about it. And so what happens is there's this actual recall election for the first time in the history of the town. They actually, it's kind of diabolical the way they did things. They went out and they would get signatures from people in town that were misled into signing things. So friends of mine were signing a recall petition because they needed to get a certain number of signatures on the petition to get the election. And people would tell me, oh, they told me it was because they would reduce taxes, all these crazy things. And these people would never have signed it. They were, like I said, friends of mine.
Sure,
and they signed affidavits saying that, you know, I would never have signed it. And we went to court about this, and, you know, the court didn't care. It was just basically, you're going to have a recall election, you know, this is it, and this is the date. And that was about a month and a half to 2 months before the trial. So I ended up winning. For the,
now, to interrupt you on that point, you were the first mayor in the United States of America to have a recall election and win under an indictment.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That's right. And I won, and naturally my opponents just were despondent. It was almost like comical, because I actually spoke with a reporter the other day who was actually in their headquarters on the day of the election, and you'd think that, you know, someone like, you know, kidnapped their children. They were so upset, and they were obsessed with this, you know, recall election. So essentially after that, then the trial was then I was able to focus on the trial, you know, to try to, you know, clear my name, which we did, and thankfully, you know, things worked out. It was just a horrible experience for my family to go through. It was a month. I could take it. I always said that, you know, I can go through all this, but I just felt more upset because I had to see my poor mom, my wife, and thankfully my children were very small at the time, and the town kind of coalesced and, you know, got behind, you know, my family and basically protected them to a large extent. And they really weren't really at that point in time, you know, aware of what was going on. As they are now, they know now.
Well, of course. I mean, it's, you know, when children can read, it really just becomes hard to keep secrets from them.
Yeah.
Especially ones that are in the media, and of course you were writing your book.
Right.
And I'm sure it must have felt amazing to be able to actually write something and put it out there as almost a, you know, middle finger to the people that set you up and are watching you and are still probably watching you, right?
Possibly.
I mean, it's
You
possible.
never know.
Like,
Big
you
Brother
do
knows.
never know
Right.
since,
Right.
you talked a little bit about, in the book, about how you really never expected to be in politics. And here you are in politics, now you're in a mess, now you're writing a book. How has this all impacted your life in a negative or a positive way?
Yeah. So, I mean, naturally, the negative way is that I really won't have these types of meetings anymore. So it's unfortunate because really you want to be able to do these kinds of things in order to, I guess, further some of the things you want to do in your community.
Certainly.
But it's just that you never, connect. Something like this could happen. God forbid, it was something that happened out of nowhere, and nothing was done wrong.
Did you feel that your Unico friends set you up, or no?
No, in fact, I talk about in the book that, the guy's name was Vinny Tabacino, and I could tell you that as much as like a lot of people I know hated him for doing this and dragging me into this, in the end, and I just found this out like about 2 or 3 weeks ago at a dinner I was at with some of his friends, they said that he was actually approached by the agents and they told him that, if you ever want to see your grandchildren again, you'll testify against Suarez. This is what I had heard, that they were going to effectively give him probation or nothing as long as he testified against me at trial. And even though he lied...
How is that legal?
Well, I guess, this is how... And like I said, it's kind of like what's... I'm not a big Donald Trump supporter by any means, but he draws attention to a lot of these issues with, these agencies. So... essentially, he didn't back down, and he testified at trial and told the truth. He said that I didn't know any of this, and this is all, basically his fault. And eventually, in the end, I think that he did the right thing.
Wow, that's pretty amazing, and I think that's really honorable of him. That's fabulous. We're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back after this.
Did you know that all New Jersey voters are entitled to vote by mail? It's true. Thanks to changes in state law, registered voters don't need a special reason to vote by mail. Now you can save time and cast your ballot from the privacy of your own home with Vote by Mail. Want to learn how? Contact the Hudson County Clerk's office at 201-369-3470 or visit us on the web at hudsoncountyclerk.org.
Voting by mail has never been easier. Just follow these steps to ensure your vote will be counted. Open your envelope. You will find your certificate, return envelope, and official ballot. When casting your ballot, use only a pencil, black, or blue ink, not red. Completely fill in the oval to the right of each selection. When writing in, do not repeat a name printed on the ballot. If torn or damaged, your vote will not be counted. Fold your ballot and place it in the pocket of the certificate before sealing it with the adhesive strip. Do not detach the strip and paper from the certificate. Fill out the required information on the certificate and don't forget to sign. If you are not mailing or delivering your ballot in person, make sure both you and the bearer of the ballot sign your name and address on the certificate and return envelope. After that, just place it in the mailbox and your vote will be counted. For more information, you can visit our website at www.hudsoncountyclerk.org or www.hudsoncountyNJ.org.
Hudson TMA reminds you that whenever you are out on your bike, there are several things you must remember to stay safe.
That means when you ride in the street, ride in a straight line with traffic on the right side of the road. Riding against traffic is dangerous. It puts you where the driver of a car isn't expecting you.
Meaning he might turn in front of you, or worse, into you.
And you know what that means.
Ouch.
And if you're riding with friends, always ride single file. And here's something else to remember. Always obey traffic lights and signs, and pay attention to lane markings.
When you see one of these, stop. When you see one of these, yield. Traffic might be coming from one side or the other.
Now, since your bike doesn't come with turn signals,
Use your hands.
but always check for traffic before you turn. Do this to turn left, this to turn right. Also, some states allow you to do this to turn right, and do this to stop.
We're back with author mayor, Anthony Suarez, politically indicted, the real story. So, Mayor, you stayed in office. Why would you, after you've gone through so much? What drove you to actually stay in politics and be a political figure, especially since you really said that you never really thought you'd end up there?
Yeah, so what happened is in our form of government, we had always been, it's known as the weak mayor, strong council form of government. So up until this time in 2009, I'd pretty much been in the minority for a long period of time and wasn't able to get a lot of the initiatives I wanted to get through done. And after this, I won the trial, we won the election that year, and then we've been winning since then, so we've been in the majority since then. So a couple of things. The first was I told my wife this too after the recall election when I won. I said, really, the town, where would this ever happen, right? I said, the community really got behind me. I said, I can really never ever leave this community because they really cared so much about me.
So you really felt that they deserved you.
I thought that I should, I owed it to them to be able to, do whatever I can to help the community. And I'm not just saying, that's the truth. I really felt afterwards, grateful that, if I was recalled from office, that would have been something that would have been used at the trial. And then I would have never, been able to, basically, tell everyone, people in Ridgefield who know me the best believed in me. And they're the ones that would know whether, I would do something wrong or not.
Right.
So, and I also, was able to, like I said, we gained the majority, and we've been able to now do things that we've been wanting to do for, the last 20 years. Finally, we've got a good group of people that are on the council. Good. So that's the main reason why. And it's actually, I grew up in Ridgefield. I've been there my whole life. My kids are now in school there. Obviously, they're at a point in time where I can do whatever I can to impact various aspects of Ridgefield. So that's kind of why I stayed in office.
I know in the book you talked about the media coverage being so instrumental. How can you speak further about that?
Well, so that was the whole thing. That what I couldn't understand. That's like the whole issue with calling for me to resign, and that happens a lot nowadays too, right? So this is basically a situation where a prosecutor's made an allegation against you and accused you of something. And I don't think that's a reason that what the founders of the Constitution wanted us to be doing, that all of a sudden you're suspected of wrongdoing, you got to leave office. I had the right to be able to go to trial and have a jury judge me on the case. And the media was just, it was horrible. The coverage that the Record gave every single day was a negative story. They had editorials that I should be recalled from office, that I shouldn't stay in office. And, it just was, it was just piling on, the bad press. There was really no neutral articles written. It was always a slant. So my whole thing was that, you're in political office, you're presumed that you're guilty. That you don't just go on that witness stand where, the jury's got to be convinced that this person is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. You're on that stand basically telling everyone, the truth and convincing them that you're not guilty. So, I think that's part of the problem, the bias of the press during that period of time. And they were so behind Chris Christie, this great corruption fighter, when we see how it turned out for him, the kind of person he really is.
Certainly.
And sure enough, this just shows you that, there's really an order to the world where things in the end become what they're supposed to be. And he should have never been president of the United States, which was his ultimate goal. He did become governor. I think no matter what, Corzine was so unpopular, he would have won that year anyway. He didn't need to start putting people in jail for crimes they didn't commit. So that's, basically, the situation.
So the book and the larger issues that you talk about with the politics, and that has to do with Christie. Why do you feel that you might have been targeted? Because they had to literally sit there and say, okay, this is who we're going to set up. Why do you feel that you might have been targeted?
So this is what I think, and this is my belief. That
it's just an opinion, by the way.
Yeah, this is my opinion, and the opinion of others who were in the community, that there was obviously people that he was targeting, initially in the Hudson County area. And what happened is, I got brought into it by, a third party, obviously, right? So I eventually got brought into it, even though I was not the initial target of the whole, investigation here. But the problem is that they could have just released me and not, you know, gone forward with the indictment after they got all the information after the arrest, if that was the case. And they didn't. You know, I was mayor in a swing district that, you know, Christie's running mates were on the ticket. Obviously, the guy from Ridgefield, who was the council president, was running for assembly. Christie was in Ridgefield doing a fundraiser the week before this all happened. I mean, there's a lot of ties here. His, you know, Christie's aunt and uncle was, you know, very involved in Ridgefield politics. So I believe that there was some sort of knowledge here, obviously, of who I was. But although I don't think initially that, you know, they were saying, let's go after Anthony Suarez, the mayor of Ridgefield. I think it was more along the lines of, you know, we're in Jersey City. We have like some people in Hudson County. You know, Mayor Healy's in Jersey City. Then all of a sudden it started expanding while this guy Dweck was running amok trying to like bring people in and, you know, get people like set up with crimes. Wow.
Was there ever a moment where you had 3 meetings with this guy? Was there ever a moment that you obviously retained a lawyer right away? I mean, you spoke to a lawyer, I should say. Wasn't there ever a moment that you thought to yourself, maybe I shouldn't go to this 3rd meeting?
Well, so actually that Henry Klingman had previously been my attorney, so I knew I already had a relationship with him when I was consulting with him. So it's, again, when you're dealing with someone, and if you ever, like I said, see the videotapes, this person doesn't come right out and say, like, you know, I essentially want you to engage in this kind of conduct with me, or say, you know, I'm going to give you money and I want you to do that. It was, the way that he said things and did things, it was almost like he was, you know, snowing you, trying to fool you. And you would say something like, just so you know, I do things by the book. And his response would be, oh yeah, no, I understand that, sure, no problem. So you really couldn't tell what this guy's, you know, background was. You just basically wanted to eventually, at one point, stop dealing with him.
Certainly.
And I didn't know enough that, you know, he was engaged. I thought that there's something very strange and unusual about him. And I really am not the kind of person that wants to get someone in trouble, you know, to report them to the police or anything like that, because I really wasn't convinced. I had no idea. It was so nebulous, the conversation.
Certainly.
And the reason I went to the 3rd meeting was essentially because I was advised, saying, you know, from Henry, sit down with the guy, tell him the way you do business, just to make sure, in case he really does want to do. I didn't want to, you know, hurt the community.
Certainly.
So if he really wanted to come to Ridgefield and was really trying to do something that was the right thing, I didn't want to impair that. But I, at some point, just cut my ties with them and didn't talk to him anymore.
That was smart.
And they did try to continue to get in touch with me
I'm
even
sure.
after that. There was like, you know, phone conferences between the 2 of them, Tabacino and Dweck, you know, about getting me to another meeting to give me money, and I never went, and you know, nothing ever happened.
That's awesome. What is the most important thing that you would like everybody to know about the book and about your experience?
So the most important thing I would say is, like I said before, that if you really, you know, believe in something, I knew I was innocent from the beginning. Don't let anyone try to basically change your opinion. And, you know, if that's the case, you believe in yourself, you just, you know, go forward with it. And which is where they were trying to get me to resign, to back off, and not to go forward, you know, staying in office or to fight the trial. And also, like I said before, you really know who your friends are when things go south, because, you know, in nowadays you really, you know, you may have like a big community of people that you know, that you think they're your friends, but in the end, you know, your true friends are who stick with you in the end.
Awesome. Well, Mayor, thank you so much for coming out. The book goes out today, so get your book on Amazon, right? It's on Amazon.
Yes.
And
Mascot Books website too.
okay, great. Thank you all for coming. Inside Holly on the Hudson. Take care. Bye-bye.